Colonel, you know this. You were around when after the Gulf War, you saw the politicization of the United States military. You saw the Clinton, administration come in and immediately say, look, the military professionals that are currently running the military for 12 years, they've been under the control of Ronald Reagan and Bush type Republicans. They mocked Barry McCaffrey when they made him the czar. They mocked everybody, and so they started replacing generals they felt that were ideologically non-aligned. You don't have generals that are ideological. Generals are supposed to be apolitical. Their job is to be military professionals. Their job is to tell politicians what their professional military opinion, not to sit there and say, I support your policy. Military officers aren't policy makers in terms of foreign policy, economic policy, etc. That's the civilian leadership's job, and the military's job is to implement the policy, execute the policy to the best of their professional military capabilities. But instead, he started pulling people out, replacing them, and we began the process of the politicization to the point where today you can't be an effective combat leader and survive a battalion commander selection board, because they're going to get into, at least, they get into things that don't matter. You can't make it from lieutenant colonel to colonel unless you've done your purple defense industry type thing and learned about money and all this kind of stuff. These leaders today aren't leaders, they're managers. That's the problem, Colonel. And I know I'm insulting a lot of people right now, but I just remember when I came back from the Gulf War, the Marine Corps tried to sell total quality management, TQM. And I just remember sitting in an auditorium with a bunch of company grade officers going, we don't manage, we lead. This is what they taught us from day one. We're not managers. That's what civilians do. That's what the Air Force does. We lead. We get out there and we show our tactical proficiency and we show our physical fitness, and we lead by example. We lead by expertise. Our modern leaders are managers, and they're managers of the worst sort because they're not managing military professionalism. They're managing a business. They're managing a political campaign. They've become people who become cheerleaders for the policies of
all right,
the
Scott, that's
leadership.
enough.
And therefore they forgot that their job is to say not just...
That's enough. Scott Ritter, ladies and gentlemen. He's good, but you get his point quickly. 311 came on a little later than I wanted to. I'm running out of things to say on Railtown, so I'm going to go over, I guess, the broader strokes of Railtown. I'm also going to try to encourage you to look at your investment in Railtown, because I think it is an investment, not a trade, is going to create meaningful value in your account. But if you're watching it day to day, you fall into the trap of what we call the shorts, but it's more than just the shorts. So I've called it the heaviness, but the whole system is rigged against you. And it's all about strip mining half a penny, quarter of a penny, a tenth of a penny, but doing it instantaneously and doing it with phantom shares. Nobody's selling, guys and girls. Nobody is selling. But somehow there's always supply of security entitlements. Security entitlements supply is endless because they make money at it. Look at what happened. The stock went up for, I don't know, 3 weeks, 2 weeks. Look, my sense of time is way off, but it was down below 30. It ran up, and then they can hit it down, and they're making money on that. To their strategy, they're making money, and they hit and run. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. They are the players. They lie until they lay, and then they leave. But you get caught up in it. I do too. You got to ignore it. It's your opportunity to buy. And I also want to go over Finger. I'm going to give you advice that you're going to hate, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Let's get some. The market's up 1,000. I think if Donald Trump pulls out of this colossal error that he made, Donald Trump could have gone down in history with Jefferson, Lincoln, and Washington if he had told Benjamin Netanyahu, piss off. Instead, he's going to go down with the likes of Chamberlain and, trying to remember that name of that man, Benedict Arnold, the man with no country. Because Donald Trump went to war bombing on behalf of a message that Benjamin Netanyahu has lied about and put out for 35 years. You can look it up. Same message, but Trump fell for it. Why? Miriam Adelson is the most powerful person in the United States. Happens to be a woman, but she's extraordinarily powerful. And it's good for the bankers. And it's good for Zionism, Christian and Jewish Zionism. So Trump didn't go to war for the United States of America. He went to war for Israel, whatever that means. I think Israel has to be removed from the Middle East. And if the Israeli population feels threatened elsewhere in the world, they're not threatened in Iran. They live in peace there. Jews live in peace there. Jews live in peace in Russia now. Jews live in peace elsewhere in the world. But if those people feel threatened, invite them to the United States of America. One country on the planet that has welcomed Jewish immigration and allowed the Jewish culture and Jewish individuals to thrive without risk of death or harm is the United States of America. Come here. It'd be cheaper for us to give the Israelis half of Arizona, half of Utah, hell, half of Florida. It'd be cheaper than constantly being the big brother in the bar room while the little brother, once they have a couple of drinks of power, picks a fight with everyone in the bar. So anyway, let me get off of that topic. I don't have enough time, but I think it doesn't matter what I think. Israel is finished, by the way. Israel is finished. Women are going to leave Israel. I don't think Iran's going to quit until Israel cannot function as a country. Israel's finished. And perhaps the UAE's finished. Perhaps Kuwait and Qatar are finished. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But the other thing that's finished because of Donald Trump's decision, U.S. hegemony in the Middle East. Our bases are gone. We will never have supremacy over the Middle East again because Donald Trump chose to listen to a liar and a man who will go down in history with some of the men in Germany, Russia, Cambodia, and elsewhere. Donald Trump decided to align his interests with a loser named Netanyahu. And you know what? Netanyahu doesn't give a crap about Donald Trump. So I think Trump would have been extraordinarily successful in everything he's trying to accomplish if he had just told Netanyahu to go pound sand. But instead, Donald Trump is the instrument that Israel and, frankly, the Israeli lobby in the United States has been trying to cause war with 7 countries. and Trump finished off the 7th on the list. He's not finishing off the country. Well, anyway, in spite of all that, the most tragic mistake I can ever imagine a president making, the one thing I will admire immensely is if Donald Trump announces we won, even though in his heart he knows we lost. Or maybe he doesn't know. But if he cuts losses and leaves, if he cuts the United States losses and we leave, and he tells Netanyahu and Miriam Adelson and Witkoff and Kushner and Flink and Flack and Black, hey, I did everything you wanted. It was awful what's happened to the Jews for eons. It's awful what happened in Europe 80 years ago. But you know what? I think America's done everything we can do. We're pulling back. You carry your own water in the Middle East if you have any water left. If not, you're welcome to Orange County in California. You know, invite them all. 8 million of them, 10 million, bring them all. It'd be cheaper. But anyway, if Trump walks away from this Middle Eastern fiasco, I think I don't think he'll go down as a great president because what he's done here on behalf of Netanyahu and Miriam Adelson, I never thought that Donald Trump would have his balls in somebody's purse. But he did this for Miriam Adelson. Unbelievable. But what he did is going to change your lives irrevocably. It's just a question of, will it happen next month or will we have a couple of years to get ready for it? But for the rest of your lives, the United States will no longer be the sole power in the Middle East. For the rest of your lives, the United States dollar will not have seigniorage. For the rest of your lives, you're going to pay the real price for raw materials and goods around the world. For the rest of your lives, we're going to be Australia, not the United States of America. And it's okay. Australia has a perfectly good life, but your lives are going to change. And the world's lives are going to change. There's going to be starvation in the Middle East and in North Africa, probably in Western Asia, but certainly in Europe, there'll be starvation. In the United States, we're going to go through a period of dislocation. If you own oil and gas, if you own precious metals, if you have income coming that has value in current times that people are going to have in future times, you'll be all right. But if you're going to continue to live on this idea of American uniqueness, you got to adapt. And I think because this will be the dividing point, history will blame Donald Trump the way history blames her unfairly, probably, but blames Herbert Hoover for the Depression. History will blame Donald Trump for destroying, ending with a crescendo the world order as we've known it. Bretton Woods is over. We're going to go to a world where it's North America, it's Russia, it's China for now. And then we're going to have to make adjustments for where the population is and the future wealth is. Parts of Africa, parts maybe Brazil, India, Indonesia. But for now, 3 superpowers, and we're not going to have the benefits we had before. And that's all. I got a lot of shit about it, but it's all because Donald Trump decided to put Israel's Zionistic white supremacy, religious theocracies, interests ahead of ours and ahead of yours. And anyway, I will admire him if he pulls out of it. Because one good thing about Donald Trump, he knows how to cut his losses and just get away from a losing proposition. But he's going to have to wipe Netanyahu off his hands like a booger. And he's going to have to tell Miriam Adelson, take your $35 billion. If you want to build Israel, go do it yourself. Anyway, enough of that. The market's up 1,000 points. NASDAQ's up 780. S&P's up 200,000. Our stocks, I don't know what's on my thing here. Railtown was 29 cents. I guess it still is 29 cents. Finger is 97.5. It's up almost a nickel. GTII, for some reason, is on my screen at 0.0011. There's those of you who gave me reams of pushback when I said sell GTII at 20 cents, 22 cents, 21 cents. Thank God some of you did sell it. Oh no, we're getting this, the receiver, we're going to get things. Once things go legal, you don't get legal tender back. There's a rhyme in there somewhere. MTEN is 121. That was $27. Billionaires involved. Going to 300. It's 121. Next trip is 324. That's actually recovered. It's over 3. Let me look at. There's one I want to look. There's two I want to look at if they're here. They're not here. Okay, so we won't look at them. We won't look at them. All right, let me look at Finger quickly for you. It's 110,000 shares. It opened at $1. It went down to 94 cents. I forgot to print the chart. I was going to print the chart, but let me just show you the chart. You're not going to like my advice, and it's going to involve risk. And if you can't stand risk, then you won't listen to it, and I'll be you won't hold me to it because you won't do it. Here's the chart of Finger. Right here is the recent action down to 94 cents. This is not a good looking chart. Now, there's those of you who own this stock and you never sold any of this. I was saying sell it up here last year. No one listened to me. Sell calls. Let me tell you a story that I remember about Railtown and Finger, and it was in June. And I can almost remember her name. She had 1,000 shares of Finger. And to my memory, I think I wrote it down, but I'd have to go find it in my notebook. It's probably over there. She had 1,000 shares of Finger. I believe Finger was trading at around $5 something, but it might have been, it doesn't matter. It was trading in that range. I think 550 is what I remember. And I said, sell it by Railtown. Now, I think Railtown was in the 40-cent range. And what I remember is her 1,000 shares of Finger Motion, if she sold it there, would buy, again to my memory, 11,800 shares of Railtown. 11,800 shares of Railtown, approximately. Now, there's those who would say, well, Railtown went down since then. And that's true. It's true. So her, again, by memory, and it's the broad point I'm trying to make, not the precise accuracy, but her 1,000 shares of Finger in June of 25 could buy 11,800, something like that. Let's call it 11,750 Railtown. So this is my memory of it, and it's roughly close. Don't get bogged down in the precision. The point is, she could turn roughly a little over $5,000 into almost $12,000 worth of Railtown. Now, what does she have today? She kept Finger, to my memory. With Finger today, she has $1,000. With Railtown, I'll use 29 cents. Although I think today is the last day you'll see it there, but I've been wrong. With Railtown, she has $3,400. So her just over 5,000, her $5,500 up here turned into $1,000 by hanging on to Finger. Yes, she bought Railtown at a higher price than Railtown is today, but she would still have had about $3,500 in Railtown. And Railtown's not over with. But she didn't make that swap that I recall. I'm not picking on her. She didn't make that swap. Well, and this is why it's not always fair to just measure a trade all on its own sum. Sometimes you have to measure trades relative to what else you could have done to it. Well, what I'm going to recommend to you today, you're not going to like. You're not going to like it one bit, but you've got half an hour to do it, and you've got tomorrow, and the next day probably, and the next day probably. But I can't give you advice, but I can tell you if I own Finger right now, today, damn it, let's see what the bid is, 96 cents. So let's use her example again. If you have 1,000 shares of Finger, I would sell 1,000 shares of Finger today. I would get $960. So if I had Finger right now, I'd sell it. I'd get 1,000 shares. I get 960. I'd do it today. Now you're going to say, "Oh my gosh, it's about to rally, is it? Oh my gosh, they got this deal going on." Great. So here's the risk. Ham is extremely powerful at telling this story. Also, there are really big investors behind Finger motion. Also, at any time, momentum can carry, so Finger motion can go up. So that's the risk you have if you sell, that it goes to $1.50 or it goes to $2. But having said that, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying anything bad about Ham. I'm just saying to you that if you sell, the risk is it will go up. but I still think you should sell finger motion today. Get it off your screen. Stop anguishing over it. Take your losses, because your losses will be valuable, and buy. Now I have to get the ask on Railtown. 30 cents, 30.01. So let's take 960 divided by 0.301. That gives you 3,189. I'm going to say, if you don't mind, I'm going to say 3,200, because I think you'll do better on the sell and better on the buy. So I'm going to say you buy 3,200 shares of Railtown. I do that today or tomorrow, but I do it today while Railtown's cheap. Where do I see finger going? Frankly, I think finger could go to 25 cents, but I'm not predicting that necessarily. But finger still has to raise money. And now that it's under $1, they're just going to keep the heat on it. So I think finger could give you a broad range of results over the next 90 days, somewhere between 25 cents and $1.50. So your 1,000 shares of finger still has risk, and maybe it goes to $1. You go to $1,500. What do I think Railtown could do in the next 90 days? It's a weird amount of shares, so I can't do it in my head. So I think your finger motion in the next 90 days could be worth, in a broad range, but 1,000 shares of finger could be worth between $250 and $1,500. That's what I think. The risk is it runs, and maybe it goes to 3. What do I think Railtown could be in the next 90 days? You're 32, just by switching 1,000 shares of Railtown, a finger for 3,200 shares of Railtown. I think your range of results in the next 90 days, you turn 1,000 shares of finger into 3,200 Railtown, which results in an account of anywhere between $16,000 and $48,000, and with the midpoint of $32,000. I think you should sell finger motion. It's not financial advice. I do not know your situation. If I owned finger, I'd be selling it and I'd be buying Railtown. Now, you get to book your losses. You can wait 31 days. And after this happens, let's say Railtown in 90 days goes to 15 bucks. You might think that's too high, but let's just say that. Well, you could take your 48 grand and you could take just probably $1,500 or $1,000 and buy back your 1,000 shares of finger motion, reestablishing your position after 31 days, because you get those losses. You get to use those losses are valuable. Depending on your tax bracket, you can use a third to half of those losses and save money on your taxes. That's worth more than what the stock is trading for now, more than what the stock could go to. Get out of it. Act. Don't be a victim. Stop, stop, stop. You should have. Why doesn't this go down? I can never do anything right. You should already be out of finger. You should already be out of it. Should never have waited all this time. What the hell were you thinking? Now, I've done it myself. But what separates people that don't want to lose everything, gamblers, from investors is at some point you pull out of the Middle East and you say, we did our best. We take our losses and we're going to go put our money in Railtown. Some point you got to cut your losses. And if you waited this long, you're cutting your losses in your mind at the very last minute. Well, it could be. But you know why you do it? Because Railtown's cheap. If you wait, Railtown's going to be $5, and I wouldn't tell you to do it then. You do it because Railtown's cheap. What do you give up if you sell finger? Oh my gosh, it's going to squeeze. It's going to go up. It's life-changing money. Okay, well, Railtown is going to go up, in my judgment. It's life-changing money, so to use that phrase. And Railtown can give you, if it goes to $5, you're getting 5x on your money. At $10, you're getting 10x. At 15, obviously 15x. Those are big X's, and that is not the end of what Railtown's going to do for you. It's better than anything finger can do for you. And Railtown is not a short squeeze story. Railtown isn't, oh, the world's against us, Dak senator there and Dippy's congresswoman there aren't listening to us. We're going to go do this and that and that. It's not any of that. You got the wind behind your back. Anyway, that's what I would do. If I owned 1,000 shares of finger, I'd sell it. I'd buy 3,200 Railtown. I'd book my losses because losses have value. I think you risk that your $1,000 is worth 1,500, but it also you could lose another 3/4 of your money. Finger has to raise money. It has to raise money. If by buying Railtown, you give yourself a chance to recover. Now, by selling finger here and buying 3,200 Railtown, it's not as attractive as the woman who sold it. I don't think she did. Could have sold 1,000 shares in June and bought almost 12,000 shares in June of Railtown. It's not as attractive, but at least it's something. At least it's something. I don't think Finger's going out of business. Don't get me wrong. They've got a great team, great investors. They can make things happen. But booking the losses is smart money management. Hopping on board something that will have the wind behind its back, and you're able to buy the stock as the shorts, the criminals, what they've done in all the stocks you're in, they're doing right now today for the short-term benefit of closing out the quarter on the low. They're painting the tape. Buy the stock, take advantage of it. Nobody's selling Railtown. I mean, there might be some people that pissed off a little bit, but in broad stroke, nobody's selling Railtown. It's all phantom shares. It's all the computers going back and forth, 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 with retail in between. Take advantage of it. Buy it. Take control of your account. If instead of 1,000 shares, you're talking 10,000 shares, well, you're in my opinion, Finger might go to $15,000 if you have 10,000 shares. But Railtown, I'm talking in 90 days. This might be high. I warn you, that could be high. But on the high end of this range in 90 days, Railtown could go almost to $500,000 for you. 32,000 shares of Railtown at 15 bucks. Let me just confirm that. Yes, $480,000. Act, 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 act. If you're listening to me, you've been learning about Railtown. Act on the knowledge you have. Get out of Finger, buy Railtown while Railtown's cheap. Do yourself a favor. Create value in your account. And then when your account, in this example, is worth $500,000, then you have some optionality. You can come back and buy all the Finger Motion you want. In fact, you might have so much money that Finger Motion might give you an option to go into a private placement. Act. Become your own powerful account. Stop sitting there as a victim. Anyway, all right. That's not financial advice. It's just it's my theory of what you should do. All right. Trump is ordered to stop all construction on the White House ballroom. By whom? Our country has to fall apart. Unfortunately. All right, no new war news, so I guess we'll assume everything's good. Yeah, okay, no new war news, good. All right, so I explained to you what I would do with Finger if it were me. I know you're not going to like it, but that's my advice. Remember Bob Clayton? You must become somewhat inured towards those losses that your clients incur. Bob said there's 3 reasons to sell a stock. The story's changed. You need the money. You have a better idea. Railtown is a better idea than Finger Motion for the time being. And if you're addicted to squeeze, you feel the need for squeeze, I can assure you there's a possibility that Railtown will squeeze. I hope the heck not, because that'll destroy all rationality in our investment. It'll destroy all rationality. I hope it doesn't squeeze. All right, so I went over that. I wanted to go over in broad stroke why Railtown, and I want to do it without using any visual aids. And so I'll try to go through my reasoning. About 16 or 17 months ago, I heard the story for the first time on Railtown AI Technologies. I liked it enough to listen to it and even mention it to several people because it sounded like an interesting story. However, I had the same reaction that most of you do. It's another it's another stock, another idea. It's going to get shorted. I had all the same reactions. So I didn't do anything with it right away because I think back then I was in Nixie, and I think I was still had some hope for uh, the collection agency, uh, collective audience. I can't remember. I had a handful of these losers, but I still thought, hey, I've got a trade here. I don't want to miss out on the upside. And so I didn't do anything with Railtown right away. But I did buy my first tranche. Tranche is a very big, powerful word for how much I bought. But I'm not a big swinging trader anymore. But I did buy I think it was the end of November. It might have been the beginning of December of 2024. But my attitude was, because that was the second or third time I heard the story, my attitude was, hey, this is a lot like this private company, Uberterra, that I'm trying to get somebody to buy into. An oil and gas technology company that designed AI software, basically AI. Right. First you have the drill bit, then you have a little bit, and then it's right there on the drilling chain. And that communicates with the cloud. Everything's in the cloud, and it allows the teams around the world to real time keep the drill bit in the zone of interest and make decisions real time wherever they are, from their phone, from their iPad, from their computer, wherever. And it resulted in increasing companies being in the zone, 80% by cowboying it to 95, 98% of the drilling, which increased reserve recovery, and it turned tier 2 and tier 3 assets into tier 1 assets. And the company was bringing on customers with licensing arrangements, independents, and they were just starting to do that. They now have over 30 very successful oil and gas independents as customers, but they raised all the money they needed. It's sold out. So I never was able to raise any money for it or invest in it myself. But they will be bought at some point. As they go about their business and prove the concept, a Halliburton, a Schlumberger, maybe a KKR will buy Uberterra. They will buy it 5x, 10x. And I thought, this Railtown story is so similar to that. It's AI, it's new software. It's cloud-based if you want it to be. It's taking teams of people with this huge investment of money in a data room and freeing them up to be wherever they want to be. And it's reducing cost. It's taking what used to take weeks or hours or days and reducing it to minutes or even a minute or so of decision making. And Railtown, obviously, their partners at the time were Microsoft, AMD, NVIDIA. But obviously, Railtown, once they prove up their customers, they're going to be bought out. That was my thinking. November of 2024. But I just made that first acquisition of Railtown for myself as one of a collection of doggerel, or a collection of nags, a collection of worn out racehorses, to see which one didn't go to the glue factory. And then I really thought, based on the story that I heard, that at that time, that Railtown was going to book clients and customers, and in this space, you could see a buyout offer materialize in maybe the second quarter of 2025. Yet nothing happened. The stock kind of drifted downward, and like anyone who's been given an idea and taken the time of several people to listen to it, I didn't pester, I didn't overstay or overimpose on the hospitality, so to speak, of these ragtag group of people talking about it. So I just waited, and Railtown did an amazing thing. On February 8th, 2025, Railtown announced that they were acquiring the brainchild of John Ruffalo, Mike Norbrega, Dr. Tom Core, and Patrick Horgan, AIP Network Partnership, AIP. The idea of AIP, sent by some of the best minds in the AI and investment space in Canada, the idea behind AIP was to replicate what I forget his first name, what Leonard, CEO of Josh or Joe, or I can't remember, Leonard did with Constellation Software. Constellation Software started out as an idea by one guy that, hey, all of these vertical software companies, they make great cash flow, but they're all, the growth story is limited, and they're all too small for Wall Street in its current iteration to be interested. Wall Street's all about these big, huge gatherings of capital. So what I'm going to do is set up Constellation Software. It had a different name. And I'm going to go low bid to acquire those software companies. I'm going to roll them up. In other words, I'm going to acquire them, and I'm going to consolidate them into one sort of collection. Like if you ever watched Battlestar Galactica, all of humanity is swarmed around one battleship, Battlestar Galactica, and that's Constellation Software. And then all the other ships get their succor from the Battlestar. So anyway, that's what he did. And over time, he built Constellation Software from under $1 or under $10. It's hard to tell on the chart, to $5,000 a share. It's since pulled back because it's SAAS and Leonard retired. But I think the last time I looked, it was still $2,800 a share. So the idea was to take that same model, a roll-up model, and an acquire and consolidate model, leave management in place, provide money, provide expertise, cross-sell, but do it with this whole new industry, AI. So they put together 165 early stage and growing AI companies doing 400 million in revenue in a network, which they were going to cull for the best to roll up. Well, they met Marwan Haddad and they met Corey Brandolini and Dr. Elliott of Railtown AI Technologies at the AI After Dark British Columbia Conference, whatever the exact name was, in I think October/November. Railtown was out getting customers. And over the holidays, they finalized what must have been an idea in someone's head. Why doesn't Railtown acquire AIP partners? We'll give all that upside idea to you. Yes, you're public. That might have been one of the reasons. But we have done our due diligence on your platform. We'd like the Railtown platform to be the platform that links our accumulation of ragtag ships around our Battlestar, that links them all together. Railtown made an amazing announcement on February 8th. We're buying AIP partners. Now, that changed the whole calculus of the deal. Railtown wasn't going to be bought out right away. In fact, they were buying somebody. I looked up how long does it take in Canada to approve such things, and without belaboring it, 60 days was the outside. And that added up to basically April. So I was still in all these other stocks. I still had my first, tranche of Railtown. But as February went by, nothing really happened. I was okay with that. As March went by, I said, you better start thinking if you want to add to that Railtown. Hopefully one of these other stocks will go up and you can add to it. And I'm a much reduced account from what I've been historically. So I let February go by, let March go by, got into April. I started thinking, you're playing a little bit here with fire. But I watched it every day, and April went by. And I think I made a few phone calls. I didn't learn anything. I rechecked. I Googled and rechecked what could be going on up in Canada. And apparently, regulators can take a little bit of time. Attorneys can take a little bit of time. So I made it through May. But man, June came. And I just thought to myself, you're crazy to wait any longer. You've got to buy a little bit more Railtown. So in the first week of June, like I always tell you guys to do, I pulled out a pad of paper. I started on that weekend. I played with it probably, I don't know which days, maybe Sunday morning, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning. And just while I'm having coffee, thinking about it, doodling it, what could I do? I called around on my sources on all these other stocks. And I decided that I guess either Wednesday night or Thursday morning, I decided, well, all right, I'll sell a little bit of this one and that one. I'm not going to sell everything, and I'll add something to Railtown. I'll just kind of meet in the middle. I'll compromise with myself. So that was, to my memory, June 5th, a Thursday. I was going to do that. So I got up in the morning. I woke up early, made coffee, sat right over there, and I opened up my screen and I entered the orders. And I might have my sequence backwards, but basically I did that. I got up and took a walk. I went up to get coffee, or I got up to take a shower, but I think what sticks in my head, I went up and got a cup of coffee. It was a nice day. And as I'm walking back, or maybe I was in the shower, I'm just thinking, why are you doing a half measure here? Why are you going with a half measure? If you really believe in it. And by that time I had, well, I'll tell you that in a second. So I said to myself, you should just do it or don't do it. Another thing Bob Clayton taught us, when you're having a hard time deciding what to do, ask yourself, are you going to be more upset if the stock goes up and you didn't buy more shares? Or are you going to be upset with yourself if you stay where you are and that stock is either flat or goes down in this, in this example? In other words, lay out the two alternatives. Which one is going to make you more upset to either miss out on or to experience? And it's not always two choices, of course. And so as let's say I was walking back, I'm thinking, I'm going to be pissed off if I only own a little bit of Railtown and it works. I'm going to really be mad at myself if I hang on to all these junky stocks and I miss out on my chance to create a position, in my case, to get back to having something. In many of your cases, you can create, heirlooms. So I came back, I sat down there, I pulled out the pad, and I wrote it down. I said, if I sell everything, I sell ZJYL, I sell Finger, I sell GDC, I sell G-Bucks and Nixie, I forget, handful of them. I don't remember the exact ones. How many shares would I get? And I took a deep breath. I stood up, probably paced around a little bit. And then I sat back down. I pulled open my computer and I entered the orders on the market opening. I sold everything I could sell and I put the rest of my money in Railtown. So I only owned one stock, Railtown. Only owned one stock that I could trade. I still have a bunch of zombies in my account. So then I think it was that afternoon, I decided to start telling the story of Railtown with more force. I also made the decision that a lot of people didn't hear my message clearly on GTII. I thought I was being clear as a bell. So this time I decided, stop talking about silver, stop talking about gold, stop talking about anything. Make it clear so that when people listen to you, they leave with one idea, Railtown. I never thought it would be 9 months. Never thought that. But it's basically 9 months. So that's what I did. Now, one of the reasons is a friend of mine from my old office. We used to be, well, actually back then I did more business than he did. He's now a superstar. But he sent me the Morgan Stanley report on robotics. Basically, it was AI, but it was the discussion was much more about what AI is going to lead to. AI of everything. AI. I don't know if he said AI for everybody. I showed you the videos, but the analyst was pointing out how robotics are going to change the world and how you need this decision making. And it was so powerful that I sussed, not so much out of brains, but out of just memory, muscle memory, how Wall Street used to pitch stories and then draw huge amounts of money into those stories by training first their AEs, that was account executives. Then they were called FCs, financial consultants. Then they changed the name in many cases to managing directors, but it's all the same thing, stockbrokers. So first they train their stockbrokers with the idea, then the brokers train the customers. And what I saw was this is a compelling story. It's a massive story. But Wall Street's going to be, this is where Wall Street's going to raise money. So that was one powerful. That was to my memory, that was in May. And then I think it was in April, maybe May, early May, that one of I used to subscribe to James Altucher, if I'm saying his name correctly, and I still get residual marketing all the time from him, to the point that my email is just junk email now. Not just he, others too. But I happened to open it up, clicked on it, and I listened to his video, which now he's all promotion. I did this, I called that, and there's no way to click through. So I listened to it as many times as I could stand it. I never finished it. I never got the stock he wanted me to know about. But I took notes. I have them somewhere. I've read them to you. I played some of it for you. You can still find it on YouTube. But James Altucher talked about how the first iteration of AI 1.0, very similar words, different, but the same idea as the Morgan Stanley analyst. AI 1.0 was one thing. It was about gathering the data. It was about getting people familiar with the concepts. But AI 2.0, his word, was all about using it, all about putting that AI 1.0 to productive use. And the two things James Altucher just hammered home, this is the greatest technological revolution in 150 years. And this investment landscape will create more wealth than crypto. It will make crypto wealth look like a ripple, is what he said. And I realized in that environment, now one thing you guys don't recognize, because why would you? You weren't there. Wall Street used to be a many splendored thing. Now Wall Street is basically a handful, three really, big brokerage firms, and a handful, really probably five, big pools of money, a bunch of cheaters that work for the pools of money, and then a bunch of asset gatherers that collect money and put it in mutual funds, ETFs, or with private equity. That's it. It's not like it used to be. So you wouldn't have recognized what's coming. And I was early, I admit that. But I didn't, it wasn't just me. I was getting ideas and information, public information, by the way, that led me to believe that there was a lot of urgency in Railtown last year. But the main thing I picked up on as a investment opportunity is what I've described to you many, many times. Railtown was public. Most of the other AI companies you could invest in were private. Or if they were public, they already had their massive 50x or 100x. So Railtown was unique. It was public. The price was low, so we could buy into it. The second thing I noticed about Railtown is many of you don't buy into the destruction of the criminals on Wall Street. I do. But Railtown did not do a toxic financing. The wind was beneath their wings. The wind was in their sails. The industry was right, the world's largest industry. And I thought, as I've expressed to you, this is the way for everyone to make their money back and get great returns. So that's the genesis and the campaign. I did think last year, I'm not going to tell you the things that I thought because they didn't happen and it just is not relevant. But I would suggest to you that the timeline for Railtown has been stretched out, but it's not inordinate. It's not inordinate. Even if it goes to June, that's only a year. But if we want to call them delays, I don't think they're really, that's a fair term. It's because everything got better. By buying AIP partners, Railtown now owns a network of companies who collectively do 500 million in revenue a year. And they probably spend, rough brush, they probably spend 200 million on hyperscalers elsewhere. So that's a captured audience for cross-selling, for selling the platform of Railtown, but also for the roll-up strategy and for moving that spend from other hyperscalers to TELUS. It's huge. It's huge. You now know, what most people don't, that Railtown can essentially book its first revenue. This is a guesstimate, but if it's 200 million at 20%, you know that Railtown has control of bringing in 40 million in revenue via TELUS data center. Could it be less? Could it be a little more? Sure. But roughly 40 million, all 100% margin. That is as compared to Langchain, which was valued over $1 billion on an estimated 12 million to 16 million in annualized revenue, and they weren't making money. So that's very powerful. By the way, I don't know if it's true, but it's speculated that Ruffalo, I don't know if it's true, it's complete speculation, that Ruffalo might have been the one that introduced TELUS to Railtown. On the other hand, Corey implied that they met him at a conference. So I don't know for sure. But this sovereignty issue, which initially is presented as a Canadian sovereignty issue, has become enormous, particularly after the world realizes that the large hyperscalers and the high-tech firms are all run by Zionists, primarily. That's not a popular thing in the world right now. So this sovereignty story is very powerful. And Railtown's there. Railtown's there. So you've got TELUS. Again today, TELUS had news that's really important in Canada. Very important in Canada. It's the kind of news that in Canada, if you don't get it out, you're in trouble. But TELUS introduced a subsidized smart energy offer for low-income households. That needs to get out. Eventually, you're going to see news that says TELUS's data center at Rimouski is kicking ass, or it's about to kick ass. But they got to get through all these public service announcements first. We don't know what the delay is in actually getting to production. It's all about talk until then. But it's going to come. It's going to come. And once it comes, it's going to be like a slingshot, or it's going to be like if you've been, it's been a long time, but you're on a roller coaster and it's slowly going down and it slowly is going horizontal, and then it finally catches and it pulls you up the thing. It's going to pull you up. TELUS is going to pull Railtown up like that. And that's coming. That's coming. So anyway, the basic story of Railtown boils down to the TELUS data center, the TELUS arrangement is even bigger, probably, than the AIP partnership deal. And that was a brilliant deal. This TELUS deal is the wave that's going to change Railtown's story. Why? It's going to prove the concept that Railtown has a soup to nuts platform, from observability to conducting to real-time ingestion of information, processing that all on one interface. Railtown is going to be able to prove that they belong on the best stacks in the world particularly in this era of sovereign data. Not only can Railtown visibly show, probably, that they will grow their Rimouski revenue to maybe 250 million. That's a guesstimate on my part, but analysts will make their own judgments, and growing, sticky every single year, high margin, the highest possible margin. It's going to prove a concept that every data center that wants sovereignty in the world is going to want Railtown's technology. Now, there are competitors. There's Google, ADK, but Google's is staying in their own silo. There's LangChain, but apparently LangChain isn't as good, but it'll grow. There's enough money there, it'll get better. And it's good. It's a lot of articles call LangChain the gold standard. I think that's propaganda, but it's out there. And there's probably 6 to 12 others. But what Railtown has is 7 years ago, they got together with the idea. They wrote the white paper, took 6 months on it. They went to the best IP law firm they could find, and they backed up their ideas with IP, which is a process. It's not, you don't just buy it all in one day, but that's established. And they have as one of their strongest supporters, Microsoft. The data stack at TELUS is NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is trying to build the whole stack. They want to build not just the Rolls-Royce engine, but they want to build the Rolls-Royce and sell you the engine inside of the Rolls-Royce, the roller. So I think what you have in Railtown is that a huge firm, TELUS, is going to run interference for Railtown, run tackle, and Railtown is going to be dodging and weaving behind the offensive line and picking up yardage the whole way, if that's a way of talking about football. So when does it start? When are you going to see it? Well, obviously, I was wrong again about the first quarter. I thought it would start in the first quarter. I can't tell you. I mean, the news that comes out of TELUS is very important in Canada, but I don't know. It's not what we're looking for. I guess AI is so rapidly evolving and the stakes are so large, and you need a lot of sign-offs and you need a lot of planning, that it's better to get it right than to rush it. It's better to think in long term than to think in daily stock price, both at TELUS and at Railtown. And so I think it's going to start tomorrow. I hope not, because I'd like most of you to buy more shares. But I think it's going to start tomorrow. But could it be the middle of April? Yeah, could be. Could it be May? Yes, it could be May. Could it be the middle of May? Yes, it could be the middle of May. Could it take till June? Yes, it could take until June. But I guess if I had to pick a time, I would say after Easter and before International Labor Day, Workers' Day. I'd say somewhere between April 6th and May 1, you're going to start to get traction in your knowledge from other sources than myself, and hopefully other than Tony the Tigger, like research. And you're going to start feeling more comfortable in the story. But the time to buy the stock is while you're still a little bit hesitant, because as the story gets out, the stock price, I think, will catch up with LangChain. So it's almost 4:30. I'm going to finish with my target for Railtown over 90 days, with the caveat that I've been wrong, almost entirely wrong, in my timing since June. But I think you're going to see Railtown go to 350 10x to $5 by before June, and maybe well before June. And I think once it gets to $5 or $6, it'll double to 10 or $12 in a couple of weeks. So that is based on fundamentals. That'll be based on the story getting out. That'll be based on the buyers buying. It'll be based on the fact that the shorts will no longer be able to borrow endless amount of shares at those low prices. They'll probably try to play their reindeer games again, but then you're going to have large institutional buyers buying it. And I would give it a 50-50 chance that the company doesn't exist in when we leave this year, that it's a subsidiary of a much bigger company. Anyway, that's my short summary on Railtown. I talked about my recommendation on Finger, and it's the only other thing I want to maybe look at is what David Morgan is saying. Of course. Why doesn't it sign in? I was just in it. Log in. Oh, good. It memorized it. Perfect. All right. All right, where's your darn it. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay. He talks about Mexico. I forgot all about Mexico and the drug dealers. So I don't want to go on that. All right. So and he brings up, how does that affect silver supply, gold? Mexico is the world's top silver producer. This is his March report, so it's been out for a while. Mexico is the world's top silver producer, often cited at around 6,300 metric tons. We are being told that cartel violence is uniform across Mexico. It is not. Okay, so that's what he talks about for the first 2 pages of his letter. Then he goes to the COMEX and talking about delivery of silver and gold. And I'll read the paragraph. There is a recurring narrative almost every major delivery month that the COMEX is on the verge of failing because open interest exceeds the amount of silver in the registered category. On the surface, that sounds alarming. This is why I like him, by the way. He's a counterbalance to the hype. And I followed him for, it's almost 20 years. And I've always found his sober advice to be accurate. On the surface, this sounds alarming, but it is a misunderstanding of how the future markets function. Open interest represents outstanding contracts, not metal that must be delivered. Most of those contracts are either offset, closed, or exchanged for physical or rolled forward into the next active month. This has been going on for decades. So the market, the future market, if it didn't do this, it wouldn't have a function as a hedging and price discovery mechanism. It would simply be a physical clearinghouse, and that's not the purpose of futures. Even in the months when the headline numbers look dramatic, for example, 400 million ounces of open interest versus 100 million ounces in registered stocks, the historical pattern is consistent. As first notice approaches, open interest declines sharply. Some metal is delivered. Much of it remains within the COMEX warehouse system, simply moving from one warrant holder to another. Registered can decline, then eligible is re-warranted if incentives warranted. It's dynamic. If you step back and look at the last 3 to 4 years, you see this ebb and flow, not a collapse. Anyway, he goes on to talk about that. Okay, this I agree with. The most interesting wild card is Shanghai. How long are you going to be in Shanghai? The Shanghai Futures Exchange operates differently than COMEX. It's more tightly linked to physical warrant delivery inside China. Warehouse stocks there can be more direct indicator of domestic tightness. But silver is a global market with multiple clearing centers. COMEX, LBMA, Shanghai, they all interact together. Metal is mobile. La donna est mobile. It comes into warehouses and it leaves. We have witnessed stress in the silver market from the time it was trading above $50 until the peak in January of 26. It seems that the stress has been relieved as we go to press, which is why I, particularly with one gentleman who doesn't talk to me anymore, I saw silver as a hedge against big investments. But once it traded up, it's just too volatile as a hedge. It still makes sense to own it. I wouldn't sell it. But the volatility, I thought in January it was going to come in. Anyway, let's see what David says. Could there be more stress? Of course. But the simple comparison of open interest to registered stocks of silver has been used for years as proof of an imminent default that never materializes. I agree with him on that. But you can always have a panic at any time, which he says. Silver is tight structurally over the long term, in my view, David Morgan. But that is a supply demand argument, not a monthly COMEX meltdown thesis. Then he talks about artificial intelligence. This is written by Ted Butler, who works for him. Ted Butler, I've followed. I don't know him as well. Not that I ever met David Morgan, but you feel like you get to know somebody when you read his books, listen to his interviews, and subscribe to him. So Ted Butler says artificial intelligence, catalyst for economic collapse or gateway to utopian abundance. From the invention of the steam train in the 1800s to the birth of the internet in 1969, innovations are almost always met with initial skepticism before ultimately being embraced as catalysts for prosperity. This is evolutionary biology. Man naturally fears the unknown, but is receptive to solutions that better her life. Talks about Microsoft, Amazon, others cutting jobs. I don't want to go through all that. Talks a little bit about the Great Depression for some reason and compares it to what happens if AI puts people out of work. I don't want to focus on that. The existing jobs that are most insulated from AI are the jobs requiring complex physical dexterity. That's what I'm good at. Real world adaptability, emotional intelligence, another thing I'm good at, deep trust, and legal accountability. These roles depend on human judgment, relationship building, unpredictable environments, and responsibility structures that current AI systems and robotics struggle to replicate. This means the following professions will likely be okay for now. Electricians, OnlyFans. No, he doesn't say OnlyFans. Electricians, plumbers, surgeons. So dentists, psychologists, social workers, airline pilots, infrastructure engineers, CEOs, and politicians. Others will not be so lucky in escaping AI's wrath. The most vulnerable jobs: interpreters, translators, historians, passenger attendants, sales representatives. And then he talks about universal basic income. I want to skip that. Central bank digital currencies are set to be ushered into the future AI economy. I don't know. I think it's going to be tokens, but all right, currency, same difference. It's all computerized. And then they gave a bunch of charts. Then they talk about uranium. I'm going to skip that altogether. It's interesting, though, but I'm going to skip it. all about energy. But let's skip that for now. I'll read that later, and if it's interesting, I'll let you know. Then he talks, Elena Rushing writes about Bitcoin. I'm going to skip that. Ethereum. Now, I'm sure she's good. I don't know who she is, but I'm just not that interested in it. And then they talk about earnings for a bunch of the miners. I'll skip that because it's a month old. All right, let's answer one question David was asked. David Morgan, with the stock market overvalued, do you recommend building portfolios which contain only mining or petroleum stocks and precious metals? You ever heard that before? Thank you for your calm, reassuring report. And now he's going to be very conservative. Let's see what he says. Comment, I wouldn't build a portfolio that's only mining petroleum stocks and precious metals unless you fully accept the downside. Those sectors can be brutally volatile, absolutely. Politically, regulatorily exposed, true. And they cannot, that's why I try to stick with North America. And they often get hit hardest in a risk-off event. What I do recommend for most people is a real asset tilted portfolio, meaning that you keep a sensible foundation. Number one, survival and optionality core, cash equivalents, short duration, quality fixed income, a little broad equity exposure, even if you think it's overvalued. And then number two, hard ballast, precious metals, physical gold, physical silver as the no counterparty anchor. In other words, there's no credit involved. If you use funds, be clear on the structure of your ETF, for example. The torque, number three, is mining plus energy. Quality miners, royalty streaming names, energy producers, services for cash flow. Avoid story stocks unless size tiny. Miners are basically leveraged options on metals with operational and geopolitical risk. That's true, particularly outside of the United States. Energy and mining stocks can both drop alongside the stock market in a liquidity event. That's true as well. Concentration risk is real. One bad policy shift, windfall tax, capex blowout, or financing freeze can wreck a portfolio. That's also true. So how he allocates, this is much higher than he used to, I think, 10 to 25% precious metals, with a lot of that being physical. 10 to 25% of your portfolio being mining equities / royalty companies. 5 to 20% energy. The rest is split between liquidity, cash, bonds, I imagine, and diversified equities and defenses, so that if there's a correction, you can buy more of the good stuff. His final thoughts, then I'll be done. We are living through a slow motion confidence crisis. The strain isn't isolated to one exchange, one country, one headline. It's systemic. Debt levels are beyond historic norms. Monetary authorities are trapped between inflation and insolvency, and governments everywhere are reaching further into private enterprise and personal liberty in the name of stability. When trust begins to erode at the institutional level, and you know where it's going to break first is private credit. When institutions are told you can't get your money out, it's Katie bar the door. Then volatility is not a bug in the system. Volatility is the signal. The precious metals are behaving exactly as they should in this type of environment. They are not straight lines higher. Precious metals are not immune to liquidity events, margin calls, or even speculative excess. But over time, gold and silver continue to preserve purchasing power while currencies are diluted and financial promises multiply. Volatility in metals during stress periods is not failure. It is price discovery in real time. What is particularly telling is who is quietly positioning. Institutions, sovereign entities, and large capital pools are steadily increasing exposure to tangible assets. They understand counterparty risk. They understand that digital entries in a ledger depend on the solvency of the banking system backing them. Meanwhile, the general public remains distracted, focused on short-term price swings rather than long-term monetary realities. Does that describe you? The end, whatever form it ultimately takes, is not a single dramatic event. It is a transition, a shift in confidence from paper claims, to real assets. We are somewhere in that process now. The metals are not signaling panic, they are signaling preparation. And for those willing to see it, they continue to do the job they have done for thousands of years. Preserve wealth across borders, across regimes, and across cycles of human excess. Until next month, wishing you health above wealth and wisdom beyond knowledge, David Morgan. All right, we'll leave it there. You can always sign up for his service. Google it. All right, I'm going to go through your comments. Darren Collins, Sir William, Sir Darren, my liege. Ricky Brogan, hi William et al. ETH to 20K. I don't know what ETH is. Ham Scamwich. Look, whoever you are, you're a coward and you don't care about anybody. You just care about yourself. But I don't think it's fair to blame anybody that's trying to fight what you guys do for the crimes that you guys cause. It's your scam. It's your cheating. It's your selling that rob people of their money. Now, I do agree that people get caught up. They don't know how to trade, but that's your life. That's your lifeblood. I think for him to, I think the simple solution is, if you follow him, is if he comes up with a new idea and you're interested, you buy it. You let him pump the story, and that's not illegal to make 100 phone calls, make 500 phone calls, tell the story. Let him tell the story, pump it, and you dump it. You guys make money up or down in your constant churning, your constant spoofing and spiffing and spliffing and lying and cheating and selling of non-existent shares. But you know what? You know all about that. I can't educate you on that. But it's your scam, not his. Now, I think that Ham does not understand. But, you know, he was on a different side of the Chinese wall on Wall Street. He was on trading desks. I was President's Club, so I got to visit a little bit. I'm not bragging. I'm just explaining that I got to go on the other side of those trading desks sometimes, but not very often. Not very often. Um, in general, retail, even institutional brokers, they're not allowed to see what goes on in the kitchen, in on the trading desks. Well, those desks don't exist anymore. It's all done by your corrupt computers. And but there are skills there, and there are things to learn, which I'm still fascinated by, because that used to be the vibrancy of our markets. But I think Ham does not get that you guys, your attorneys, and Rubin convinced, I believe it was Rubin, convinced Bill Clinton to change the UCC Act, Section 8, so that everybody buys security entitlements. They don't actually buy stock. And then you got Obama's administration to oversee, I don't know that he knew anything, but oversee the brokerage industry moving type 1. Nobody can have type 1 anymore except in rare cases. Everything is type 2. Everything is electronic. That's what your attorneys and you guys did. Don't blame Ham for that. Look in the mirror. You are the scam. E. Belanger added 107. I love that. I love that. Mini cows. I love it. Julia, salutations. Hola. Pat M. Hi, everyone. Hi, Pat M. Here's this guy again. Scam just like Finger, GTII, and GNS. What's ETH? Is that Ethereum to 20K? So what's Ethereum trading for right now? What's your big idea? Let's see. ETH price. Okay, so you're calling a 10x, and you don't think it's a scam. You think Ethereum is gonna give you a 10x. Well, Railtown, my friend, you call it a scam. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't take any responsibility, just like Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't care about the United States. You don't care about shareholders here. But let me just give you Langchain in October, post money. It was priced over the summer. Now, of course, you don't call Langchain a scam, do you? Because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But Langchain is private. And Langchain does, well, at the time it was priced, the estimate of ARR for Langchain was 12 million to 16 million ARR. So Langchain raised $135 million, and the last round post money was $1.25 billion, whatever your name is. And it's a private company. You can't buy it. Sequoia, Benchmark, IVF, I think Apollo, a dozen private equity firms funded that. And the estimated annual recurring revenue at LangChain at the time was $12 to $16 million and no profit. LangChain has an ADK, clunky, but it works. They have a third to 40% of the Fortune 500 companies use them. So they're called the gold standard. They do not have real time. And their observability tool, I'm not a technician. Let me just put it this way. Railtown's not afraid of their technology. Now, LangChain came out first because Railtown is Rail Engine, Conductor, Rail Tracks, and now there's something called Rail, I can't remember, STEM or Rail, there's another rail. There's a fourth one. So they have a soup to nuts. Now, Rail Engine, they spent as a heavy lift 2 years working on. Rail Engine is a real-time ingestion machine. So if you have robotics or you have flying delivery carts, or if you have automated taxis, etc., real-time trading, you're going to be out of a job, Seth, to 20K. But this is the platform that does that real-time ingestion. LangChain doesn't have anything like it, nothing like it. Now, this took longer to finalize than LangChain, but it was worth the wait. If Railtown came out earlier, they'd come out without that, and it's half the story. So we are also waiting for TELUS. Conductor is the observability, the sovereignty, the governance, the keeping the whole system on the tracks, keeping the Terminator from killing people, so to speak. That's Conductor. Critical. This is all got IP, very strong IP. And then Railtracks is the ADK, and it's got several iterations. Conductor was a heavy lift. Railtracks was what they first started with. That's what LangChain has as an ADK. But Railtracks is elegant. It works both remotely, in other words, in the cloud, but it also works locally so that information stays in the vertical channel. And LangChain doesn't have that. Do you imagine how important that is in a time of sovereignty? And then this other rail thing, I just saw, it's not in my head, but it's there as well. So they have this full stack. Now, Seth, to 20,000, as you just throw out the words scam, you should be held accountable, but you hide because you're a coward. AIP revenue, which is, let's say, exiting 2027, exiting ARR, exiting 2027, basically 20 months from now. Any research analyst will be believed if she puts that out. The revenue from AIP's network, the AIP network currently spends money at other hyperscalers to provide their AI product They currently earn $500 million in revenue. These companies, do you think that's a scam? I don't know how you can call that a scam. 500 million is a lot of money, but I guess you can call it a scam. Anyway, if they move 200 million in spend exiting 2027 in annual recurring revenue at 20%, that's 40 million projectable ARR to Railtown. It's sticky. It's long lived, and it's 100% margin. Is that a scam? Seth to 20,000? Is that a scam? That's just from AIP Network. Guess what? Railtown owns it. Of course, you'd have to do a little due diligence to figure that out. So that's just from AIP. TELUS has told us, the CEO, you can look it up. It requires some work on your part, which you're not used to doing. But you look at the third quarter earnings transcript, look at the fourth quarter earnings transcript. Darren Entwistle, the CEO of TELUS, has stated twice. Once, he stated that Railtown is one of their partners, but he stated twice that TELUS's goal, a $30 billion company, I guess you think that's a scam. TELUS's goal is to generate $2 billion by 2028, let's say exiting 2027, in annual recurring revenue, $2 billion from AI-enabled technologies. The only thing he could possibly mean is his data center and his data center stack, which includes Fire XI or Fire IX that they created. But guess what? If you did some due diligence, but I know that's hard for you to do. I mean, where are you going to fit it in? You got to sleep late. You got to go out to the clubs, little Coke, a little drinking, some oysters, fast cars, quick hop to the Caribbean. Hey, maybe that girl in LA. You got things you got to move and shake about. So you don't have time to do due diligence. But instead of using 2 billion, just use $1 billion to cut away some of the things we don't know. Use 1 billion in revenue for TELUS exiting 2027 from AI-enabled technologies. In other words, going through the Rimouski data center and the Kamloops data center. Who sits on top of that stack? Railtown. Railtown. If they get 20% of that, that's 200 million. That is speculation on my part. Maybe they get 15%. But then again, maybe they do 2 billion, not $1 billion. So, all we can do right now is give our best back of the envelope calculations. Maybe they get 25%, maybe they get 30%. So you don't know. So Railtown has a visible, although analysts can't talk about it yet, but we here know, there's some calculation risk, no question. But Railtown exit 2027, estimated ARR, sticky, permanent, essentially, and 100% margin. Railtown can project from those two sources, I think. I mean, this is projections. 240 million in annual recurring revenue exiting 2027. Once it's there, it'll last for decades. And it's 100% margin. Now, you can quibble with that. You can say, well, they'll do 2 billion at 25%. Well, that's 500 million. Or you could say they'll do 1 billion at 15%. Well, that's 150 million. So, you can quibble, but in a broad stroke, you can estimate in leaving 2027 that Railtown can be making, if you divide that by 12, $20,000, $20 million a month, all profit. And you call that a scam? I think you're the scam. Let me break that down for you one bit more, Seth, to 2000. Let me just break it down one more tiny way. If you take 240 million in ARR and remember all the attributes, all margin, sticky, moat, all of those things, and you divide it by 213 million shares outstanding of Railtown, you get $1. $1.13 per share in revenue, in net revenue, in cash flow, and in earnings exiting 2027. What's that worth? Let's just call it $1 a share, Seth, to 20,000. At a 5x, a 15x, a 25x, a 35x, a 50x. Can you do that kind of arithmetic? $1 times 5, $1 times 15, $1 times 25, $1 times 35, $1 times 50. Do I need to do that arithmetic for you? Those are the numbers in Railtown. Let me just show you one final thing. If you take LangChain's valuation from last summer, priced in October, announced in October, of 1.25 billion, and it's probably worth more now, and you divide it by that same 213 million shares outstanding, and the good thing here is it doesn't matter what you think about me. It doesn't matter that what other stocks did. It has nothing to do with me. Institutions, when they start buying this, are likely to move Railtown's valuation to at least equivalent of what LangChain was worth in October. 587. If you take that number and you divide it by the price you guys have driven Railtown. Well, let me look what Railtown closed for. Gosh, I got to sign back in. Well, let's just call it 30 cents. Divide it by 30 cents. That's 19.56. That's 20x Seth to 20,000. So you're predicting a 10x on Ethereum, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You can't predict that. I'm suggesting to people here they can make 20x on an allocation of, I think they should put all their high risk and speculative money in Railtown. They can make 20x just on the catch up move to the value of LangChain. And that LangChain is not static. They're going to move LangChain to 10 billion and 20 billion if they can help it. Railtown won't be static at 560. So I think you're the scam. And you compare it to Finger. I just went through quite a long thing on what I recommend with Finger. So you miss your mark in my judgment. GTII, I never recommended GTII as a purchase. I did spend a lot of time. Well, that's not true. I recommend it when it was low prices. But I'm talking about once it was $1, $2, $3. It just didn't make sense to me to recommend a new position in it. However, I did spend a lot of time, Seth, to 20,000, projecting what a squeeze could do, just like you're projecting that Ethereum could go to 20,000. What's the difference? What's the difference? And you're talking about genius? I ridiculed the drum major from the moment he put his dyed hair and his British accent and his bullshit out on Twitter that this is his fight. So you just miss your mark. So if you don't mind, I'm going to move on. June. Hello, William. So nice seeing you. You're the best. So are you, June. So are you. I mean it. All of you guys are the best. Anybody that puts up with me has to be the best. Ricky Brogan. So now we have John Ruffalo on board. John is the founder and managing partner of Mavericks Private Equity. Exactly. John Ruffalo got his start. I can't remember if it was accounting. I think it was accounting. But I hear so many stories. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, he got his real leg up at a place called OMERS, Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement Systems, one of the largest pension funds in Canada. And there he established and became the head of OMERS Ventures. They had a lot of money. I forget how much, but they invested in a lot of technology companies. And while he was at OMERS and Mike Norbrega was at OMERS, they were the $25 million investment that allowed Constellation Software to go public. And I think it was Fidelity sold some of their stock into that offering. Since that time, following the model, Constellation Software really hasn't issued very many shares. They have a very tight share structure. Those guys are on the board of Railtown. And that same model is what they designed for AIP Partners, which now Railtown owns. And you're exactly right. John Ruffalo then started Mavericks. He had a tragic bicycle accident where he was hit. And he did a lot of the fundraising. The power of his name and his abilities is so strong. He did a lot of the fundraising from his hospital bed for Mavericks 1. I believe Mavericks 2 raised $500 million. So you're exactly right, Ricky. I think Mavericks John Ruffalo was one of the founders of AIP Networks. John Ruffalo is on the advisory board of Railtown. According to my limited, I'm not a lawyer, but my limited understanding, if you're on an advisory board, there are some disclosure rules, but you are not precluded from having your own fund buy into the company, Railtown. So I think that's why he's on the advisory board rather than on the board of Railtown. I could be wrong. Check with your own legal advice. But I expect that both Omers and Mavericks could, as soon as this sort of quiet period ends, which I think is much more tied to TELUS doing something than tied to Railtown doing something. But I'm speculating. We're in this prolonged, lack of information flow and research and buying, but it's going to come to an end. It's not a scam. It's going to come to an end. There is no hedge fund dedicated to driving Railtown to 0.00000001 a share because there is no toxic note. Plus, I just showed you the revenue story. I think if Mavericks comes in to buy 5 or 10% of the company, I don't know, we could have a pool to figure out how long the stock stays under $5 and then how long does it stay under $10. If Mavericks and Omers come in simultaneously, we could have a pool for when it goes over $15 or $20 a share. Hi, Steve. He says, hi, Uncle Bill. I got a big order in. Good for you. I saw your post on that negativo price. Just ignore the short term. There are short term traders out there like Seth to 20,000. Their goals are very minute, very focused. They are focused. They don't give a shit about you, but they are focused on making money, stealing, churning, adding zero value. They are parasites, not only on the US financial system, on the United States economy. But they don't care. As long as they can impress the chicks with their little dicks. Ricky Brogan. John Ruffalo. John is also the founder. Okay. Is also the founder of Omers Ventures and co-founder and vice chair of the Council of Canadian Innovators. That's true too. I forgot that. He's so powerful up there. He had a meeting in Toronto. I read it to everybody, but he had a meeting in Toronto. I don't know, the last, not this most recent, but the previous election in Canada. He got his whole office or his whole house full of the top business leaders in Canada. And so Ruffalo, Nobrega, Core, I think Brandolini and Haddad are going to join that number along with Elliott and along with Hogan. But adding to that pantheon is added to it is the two Steely Dan fellas, Don Fagan and the other guy. And it's going to be amazing. Ricky Brogan, the shorts are cooked. Yeah, Railtown does have, and it's something I'm going to have to address with everybody at some point. There's probably 60 million at least shares sold that don't exist in Railtown. It is possible there could be a short squeeze. I'm going to have to address that at some point. It's my assessment right now that you don't want to hurry out of the stock. If it goes from 30 cents to $12, I think you accept the volatility and acknowledge that it could pull back. Unless you really believe you can trade well, which I would submit to most of us don't have time to. But most of us don't know. You don't understand the power of one or two or three institutions coming in to buy. You're not going to get a chance to buy it back. So it's outsized risk to take a short-term taxable profit. I think it's more sensible just to stay in Railtown, ceteris paribus, and we got to stay on top of all things, make sure they are equal. Let Railtown get bought out. You don't have to sell it. Now, if you sell, one other risk that you don't understand, I'm not talking about you, Ricky, I'm talking about everybody. You don't understand this risk. Tony, the Twinkle Toes Tiger, and his sidekick, the Platinum Blonde, made fun of me. Of course, I don't let things like that bother me, do I? I asserted, I averred, and I still publicly state that in the future, when the stock price is higher, I think the daily volume could go down to a few thousand shares a day. So if you sell 60,000 shares at 12 in what you feel is a squeeze, and you figure you're going to buy it back at 6 or 7, maybe, but maybe not. So it's going to be tricky. It's going to have to be something that I address with everybody, because there are numbers to sell, of course. I mean, what the hey? If the stock went to 150 or some absurd 300, of course you sell. So we got to figure that sliding scale. I'm not, Ricky, I'm not dissuaded. In fact, I'm almost persuaded that Railtown could be bought out for $250 a share. Not right away, but down the road. I think it's more likely that Railtown is purchased at a lower price and then achieves $250, $300, $400 a share valuation inside the belly of the beast that buys them. GTI Millie Maker, Ham Scamwich. Well, actually, I'm not ham, and that's not particularly creative. It's not very intellectual. Your mother would not be proud of you. But more importantly, I don't think Ham even knows about Railtown. So good luck getting him to talk about it. He might, I don't know. I mean, that's not to be negative on it. You can't follow everything, but you guys can short everything, apparently. Ricky says at GT Millie Maker, lots of laughs. AB Patriot. Hello, William. I sent you an email last week looking for a link to the investor deck. I don't know who. I didn't see. I'll look. I didn't see your email. I'll try to. I don't, off the top of my head, recognize AB Patriot, but that doesn't mean. All I see is your at. I don't see your name. That's the only reason. I'll try to. I sent it out to a couple of people that asked me for it. I think it got there. So I'll see if I can get it to you. YouTube user, Jim. Hello, William. Bought 300 shares. Yay. Now Q830P. Jim, that's a nice position. Q830P. Oh, here it is. That's a great position. 18,300 shares is great. Good for you, Jim. That's a great position. Good for you. Richard K. All right, here goes. Richard's going to say, I've been waiting 7 months for it to go above 33 cents. Let's see what it says. Richard K. Now under 30? They didn't get your memo about an after Easter run, William. Well, let me check. I got to check something. Richard Eeyore. Let me check. When is Easter? I got to check because I know Richard's a smart guy. You know, when Richard comments, people listen. Let's see. Today, he says it's now under 30 cents. And so today is March 31st. So let's see. Was Easter last Sunday? Oh, no, last Sunday's Palm Sunday. Was it the previous Sunday, the 22nd? No, that's not Easter. Was it March 15th? No, that's not Easter. Was it March 8th? No, that's daylight savings times begins. Was it March 1st? No, that's not it. Was it Sunday, February 22nd? No, that's Washington's birthday. So when Easter hasn't happened, has it? When is Easter? Let me go into April. Easter is April 5th. So they didn't get my memo. I didn't send out a memo, dickhead, about an after Easter run. I didn't send out a memo. But I do think, of course, you're a dick because you don't listen to the whole sentence. And I'm sorry to call you a dick, but that's what you are. I believe, and I said it before, that as soon as the beginning of April, you could see a change in circumstance. But I also said it could be mid-April. You don't remember that part of the memo, do you? And I also suggested it could be May. And I even said it could take as long as June. But it's coming. And once it comes, I hope you've sold your stock so you can watch from the sidelines. Actually, I take it back. I hope you hang on so you can be an Eeyore. When it goes to 30 bucks a share, you'll find something to complain about. GT Millimaker, get out before Ham shits on you guys. Okay, thanks for your advice. Appreciate it. GTI Millimaker, shut the fuck up. You told us to buy along with Ham, loser. No, I don't think that's right. I think Finger I was very positive on. I think GTII, early on, both Finger and GTII, I thought it was smart to build a position. But once GTII got over $1, got over $1.50, it's too much risk. So I take exception to your memory. I think you're wrong. And Finger, I thought Finger could do very well fundamentally. I've gone through it so many times, GTI Milli Maker, that I just don't want to do it again. But Finger Motion had a very compelling story, but it kept not happening. And China's changed. As far as I can see, Finger Motion every year does 35 million in revenue and trades at well, not anymore. but it has traded 2x of that or better, but never improves it. It has a thin margin. And I've really been very cautious about Finger for quite some time. So again, I take exception. Where you are correct, because I saw these stocks take off. I totally believed, so much so that I didn't sell the stock that I owned. I totally believed that it was possible to have short squeezes in a piece of shit stock, GTII, which I outright called for people to sell, but I guess I wasn't clear enough for you. And Finger, which I told people to trade and sell at times, I thought they could squeeze. But as I've told everyone, and you probably weren't listening, I think it was last February, that David Morgan, who I just read to you, came out with, in his monthly piece, a short book review of David Roger Webb's book, The Great Taking, which I've read to people here. I've read it 2 or 3 times. And that's where I learned a year ago that Bill Clinton, at the direction of you assholes, Bill Clinton, probably Secretary Rubin, changed the securities laws in the United States so that when people buy stocks, they do not buy shares of stock, they buy a securities entitlement, and that is how you guys steal. Once I knew that, and I had to process it, I've made it very clear that my past beliefs that short squeezes can happen because compliance is going to buy you in is not going to happen. So mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Joe Marty, good afternoon, William. I added 7,200. Good for you, Joe Marty. That's a lot. That's amazing. And 17,000. Joe Marty, you're adding a whole group of heroes here. 241,950 shares. Bravo, bravo, bravo. My hat goes off to you. That is fantastic. That is awesome. I think it's fantastic. GTI Millie Maker. No one cared, Joe Marty. Well, that's not true. I cared. Let's go back to it. Almost 250,000 shares. Let's just see what happens with 241 shares. I hope you don't sell. 950 times 15. Let's see at 15. That's $3.6 million. At 7.5, it's $1.8 million. Bravo, 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 bravo. GTI Millie Maker. Imagine pumping Finger for years, now backtracking people to sell into Railtown. I'm not going to comment on that. That's so brain dead, it makes my head hurt. GTI Millie Maker. Scam. You're the scam. Congratulations, CJ Yukon. Congratulations on your win. It's getting really hard to keep hearing. This is the last time RT will be such and such price. Just wish it would go. I don't know if I said that today. Maybe I did. But I understand that. It's frustrating waiting. But CJ Yukon, would you rather the company tried to goose the share price and made a fatal mistake by signing an ill-advised contract, or by launching before Rail Engine is ready, or by ramping before they have enough engineers to stay on top of everything? Would you rather they goosed the price and fatally finished the company for the long term? Or would you rather they took the time to get it right? So when it's showtime, when they ship and people start opening the, the metaphorical box and put the software on their table, it works perfectly so that the upside is huge and the runtime is huge. Which would you rather have? I would imagine it was very difficult watching your basketball team several times this year, and then it was rewarding. And I think that's what's going to happen with Railtown. I understand the pain of rooting for the Senators, delayed gratification, being a Mets fan, delayed gratification, rooting for the Orioles for a long time, delayed gratification. But then all of a sudden, it changes. And I think that's what will happen here. I don't know if you have any more money, CJ Yukon, but you should, rather than bemoaning that the stock price is not going up, if you do have more capital, I think you should be averaging down. If you have crappy stocks, I think you should sell those and buy Railtown. Investing's a lot like playing a basketball game. You have to adjust for the guy that's 7 feet tall under the basket in the game, or you have to adjust for the guy that's having a hot hand from the 3-point part of the court. So you have to adjust. And you sound like someone that doesn't like to adjust. Railtown took longer because they bought AIP. Fan-effing-tastic. Maybe AIP led them to TELUS. Fan-effing-tastic. TELUS is leading them to one-stop fire hose of customers, proof of concept, sovereignty, the hottest single area in AI right now. Fan-effing-fantastic. But it's taking a little longer. And it's hard for you to hear. I would suggest to you, it'll be easier for you to remember that it was hard to hear once the stock starts running up than if you sold it and it ran up and you didn't own the stock. But I have to caution to you, CJ Yukon. I think it's going to start tomorrow. It could be. But you've got a plan, and you hate it. But you've got a plan. It could be 2 more weeks. And in fact, you've got a plan and steel yourself. It could be May. Even further, you've got a plan. It could be mid-May. You've got a plan. It could be June. Nobody knows. All I can tell you is once the heaviness is chased away by the buying that is in a quiet period for some reason, once that dynamic changes, you're not going to be able to buy stock at 30 cents. And then you're going to see a stolen pass from a poorly coached team. They shouldn't have even been passing. And then a handoff for a 3-point game winner. And I'm sorry that your obvious skill at delaying gratification in sports doesn't necessarily translate to investing. This is an investment. This is not a hot hand trading stock. It is an investment. I do apologize that the urgency hasn't come out the way you or I wanted it. However, it'll be worth the wait. The first delay is AIP, fantastic. The second delay is TELUS, fantastic. the third delay might be advice that the advisory board is giving to the company. Fantastic. I'll take it. I'd rather the company takes cautious, careful, well thought out decisions, unlike the coach saying, why don't you pass it in front of somebody? There's only a few seconds left and we're ahead by 2 points. Just go ahead and pass it down the court. I'd much rather my coach didn't make that mistake and headbutted the umpire, the referee, instead. It never will. Okay, thank you for your comment. GTII Millimaker, Ham and Williams scam times 100. Based on what? Is that just not for nothing? Apropos nothing? Thank you for your point. GTI Millimaker, but my new scam. Oh God, you're boring. GTI buy star. GTI Millimaker. Says the guy who hasn't been right once. Well, that's verifiably untrue. GTI Millimaker. What's your prediction? What's your prediction? That you're going to steal more money? I'm not going to toot my own horn, but people here have made money on many things I've said. And Railtown's not over with. As much as you'd like Railtown to be over with, I think you've only begun to see how much pain it's going to cause you guys. And then you'll move on to some other stock. And I'm going to do my best to keep these people, these smart, courageous, patient people away from your maw from now on. GTI Millimaker. Anyone listening to this BS has 0 brain cells. Okay. GTI Millimaker screenshotted this price prediction for 90 days from now when Railtown is 5 cents. So you're trying to cause fear? I don't know. I'll screenshot that. I'll take you up on that. But I don't think you'll even be around here, or you'll have a different name. But the odds of Railtown being at 5 cents is about as high as the United States conquering Iran with 50,000 troops, a country the size of Europe or Western Europe. Ricky Brogan, I sold every single share of Finger last summer and G-Bucks. And aren't you grateful? Good for you. Good for you. I'm not taking credit for that, by the way. I'm saying, aren't you grateful that you made that decision? Good for you. Ricky Brogan took a loss on Finger and G-Bucks. Look back, and I'm glad I did as well as I did. Great for you, because you own, even though Railtown has had some moments of up, it's also mostly drifted sideways to down. You're still better off than if you had stayed in Finger or G-Bucks. So congratulations, Ricky. Ricky, everyone, if you're in a ham stock, the guy sounds like a Brooklyn mobster. Don't give his real name or don't show his face. Could have raised a red flag sooner to me. Well, I think we all operate within the skills and limitations we have. And I think some people, like there's this one professional investor, I think she's made a lot of money off of listening to him. But she has a different approach. Get in, pay attention, focus, call all the time, get updates. And if a stock goes from 50 cents to $5 or $8, get the heck out of it. Don't listen that it's going to go to 1,000. She's a professional investor, and that's how you got to do it. Unknown Steve picked up 14K. Good for you. Good for you, Steve. Ward Richardson, good afternoon, William and RT crew. That's right, Ricky Brogan. Don't forget Pat Horgan from IBM. RT has an elite team on this advisory board. Great things are coming soon. Buy more cash cows. I agree with Ward. Thank you, Ward. Silver Skyrocket. Hello, William. Hi to you. Silver Skyrocket. Hi, everyone. Unknown stuntman plus another. Wow. Wow, Steve, that's awesome. Ward Richardson. RT will globally have a stack attack on all data racks. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. You've got to stack your cash cows before that stack attack on all data racks. It takes a stack to benefit from a stack attack. Ricky, heifer is a young female cow that has not yet given birth to a calf, typically under 2 years old. E. Belanger, mid-end of April, my target for news with dollars in it. I'm writing that down. Mid to end of April. So that goes back to CJ Yukon. He's tired of hearing that this is our last chance. But CJ Yukon understands that the heaviness, the shorts, constantly do this. I don't know. He expects just because it's a good stock, we can wave a magic wand and this pressure is going to go away. I agree with you, Eric. I think news that has dollars in it is an important, significant change, particularly if it ends the quiet period that allows real buyers to come in that don't look at the market the way CJ Yukon does. It's tough. You got to make, if Warren Buffett looked at the market the way CJ Yukon does, Warren Buffett would be a waiter at a buffet, not rich. Donna M., good afternoon all. Hi, Donna. Adele Lap, 240 watchers and growing daily. That'd be great. If more people get in, that'd be great. Shavis Kuda, do you foresee an unmitigated upwards throb for Railtown in April, May? Telus will give tailwinds beyond what the pundits and naysayers predict. Well, I don't like the term upwards throb, particularly when you're talking about racks and stacks. It's too dangerous. So unmitigated, I don't think anything goes straight up. But I'll take the bait. I think what's going to happen, I've said it so many times, I think it's going to be hard. The hardest part of Railtown's move upward is going to be from under $1 to over $5. There will be various stages on the way up that some buyers can come in, probably mostly in Canada, because I think in the United States, there's a great, desert of analysts and brokerage firms that even get involved in anything under $5. There's no one. But in Canada, I think they do over $2, maybe. We'll find out. But under $1, very few buyers under $2, maybe a few more under $3, maybe a few more under $4, maybe a few more under $5, maybe a little bit more. Over $5, the whole world can buy. That's the Merrill Lynch rule. So I think you're going to see one step forward, two steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, all the way up to $5. And then once it crosses 5 and on the bid and stays there, I think it goes to $10 to $15 within days. And that's where Platinum Blonde and Tony the Tiptoeing Tiger made fun of me, but I'll stand by it. I think once the stock gets above $5 with sustainability, in other words, the bid's there, there's some volume, I think it doubles overnight almost. Yes, I think the stock has a chance of going to $15 or even $20 a share on a pretty steady run. Absolutely. Absolutely. It'll depend on research. It'll depend on big buying. And I think what's going to really drive it, Shay, is that when TELUS finally ramps up their data center, Railtown is built to scale. And if they can scale from 1,000 customers or 1,200 that they report to 12,000 to 120,000 to 200,000, and the revenue goes from de minimis to 100 projectable 100 million, you're going to have a hot potato on your hand. So yeah, I think it can run. Ricky Brogan, hi Junior. Ricky Brogan, hi Ward, Pat, Junior, and everyone. PS71, hi. I'm not, wow. Beery is up to 9 quadrillion, 765. Thank you, Beery. You know what, Beery? I used to take you seriously. I think that's beneath you. PS71, hello, sir, Bill. I texted you my new Railtown. All right, yay, PS71. Adela, Beery 57, better buy a few more. Very good answer to him. Ward, Donna says, Ward, I'm going to see the Artemis 11 takeoff for the moon tomorrow. Wow, we're going to the moon? First manned flight to the moon in 50 years. I wonder if it's going to make the whole earth shake. My grandfather used to live at Cocoa Beach, and he would go watch the takeoffs. Adelep, try rounding up. Another good answer. Donna M, not 11, but 2. Adelep, William, on Stockwitz, you can post your YouTube videos. All right, Stockwitz. I'm sure that'll ruin the audience forever. Donna, I don't think that's correct. It is taking off, but not going to the moon. Okay. Ricky Brogan, how much shared revenues from in a percent? I think it'd be 20 to 25. I think it could be in that range. I stick with 20, but I don't have a scientific reason. But every deal I've ever dealt with in the oil and gas space is always, the minimum deal is an 1/8, but then you got to add on, there's always somebody added on. So it's usually 15 to 17.5%. So I think it's going to be at least 17.5%. I do see deals there sometimes go to 50-50, but that's usually in a bull market. So that's why I picked 20. In the brokerage side, where I did a lot of, I spent a career. On the institutional side, the lowest I ever heard of was 11 or 13%. But on the retail side, it usually ran, the split usually ran from, low end was 27 or 30, 33. The high, if you hit certain numbers, could get all the way to 55, 60%. I don't know what it's like now. So I use 20%, but I think your number of 20 to 25% is possible. I think the Railtown platform is critical for a not only a positive, but a productive, performative, is that the word? An exceptional user experience. So I think it's important. William, did you make an account on StockTwits? I don't even know what StockTwits is. All I can think is the Monty Python skit of Twit of the Year, but I'll look into it. Adele, William, if you make an account on StockTwits, you can promote your YouTube videos there. You know, I haven't really tried to promote my videos, but I am trying to get my idea out that people have a chance to make back the money they lost from these other criminals with a commitment to Railtown. So I like your idea. I like your idea. Thank you, Adela. Ward Richardson. Hey, Donna, that's right, Donna. They're going to fly around the moon, from what I understand. We might see RT up there someday. The moon could use a micro data center. I think we could send a couple of these posters to the moon and never miss them. Ricky Brogan, I think John is he is in a wheelchair. Richard M.I. Richard needs to grow a pair of diamond moose knuckles. That's a good point. Ricky, William, have you checked the Venmo today? No, I didn't, but I will. Thank you very much. Ricky Brogan, RT has the best company. I agree, Ricky. I agree. Ricky Brogan, compelling story of any stock I know of. Thanks, William. 100%, Ricky, and I appreciate your support. Ward Richardson, Ricky Brogan. That's right, Ricky. Those shorts need to buy some shares or they will never get out of their mama's basement. Ricky Brogan, congrats, Joe Marty. Ricky Brogan, congratulations, user 7. Bob, let's see. Bob 7173. All of you bashers here today need to make your own decisions on stocks. I value William's opinion on Railtown and the work he puts forth for all of us, but I make my own decisions on my investments. Alpha. Bob, you should do the same. I agree with you, Bob. And you should, now you know, you should all do the same. And Bob, thank you very much for I really appreciate it. That's a big help. And it's 6:01. I've got to try to go for a 6:30. And I'm gonna do that right now. So I'm gonna sign off. Thank you for everybody. Remember, I agree with CJ Yukon. It's been difficult, this waiting. And I didn't manage expectations very well. I really thought, and I didn't make it up, I really had my reasons why there was urgency. But I do emphasize, just because there's urgency doesn't mean the heaviness isn't going to get their licks in. We are still waiting for the lifting of the news blockage. That'll come. It'll come. It could come tomorrow. I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it. I think it's going to be another 2 weeks. But who knows? It can come at any time. And if you don't have your position, it's going to be too late. So that's the cost. That's what retail has to do. We have to get our bets in early and then wait. And it's annoying. I agree with CJ Yukon on that. All right. I wish for peace and health and God's protection for all the children and citizens of Israel, for all the children and citizens of Iran, for all the children and citizens of the Middle East, of Turkey, of the Ukraine, of Russia, the world. And I pray that Donald Trump can cut his losses and get the heck out. And I pray for peace in your lives. And we'll talk again tomorrow. Thanks for stopping by.